All right, welcome to today's show. My name is Aaron Chitadese. I am here on the Growth Podcast with my guest today, David McGlennen. He's a recovering triathlete, which is amazing. He's an executive coach, and he has shared the stage with such people as John Maxwell. David, welcome to the Growth Podcast.
Great to be here, Aaron. Thanks so much for the invitation.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So, David, we've been chatting for a few moments, but for the listeners who don't know you quite as well as I do, can you just tell us a bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as you said, I'm an executive coach, and I work alongside both senior leaders and emerging leaders. Most specifically, I work in the corporate environment of small to medium-sized businesses, helping companies to really develop their culture by design rather than by default. And so through that process, I take companies through an 8-step process. And a lot of times what happens is in that process, I begin to work with not only the senior leadership team, but then also with the emerging leaders. And I love coaching and training leaders all over the world.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. So before you were coaching and training leaders all over the world, how was earlier life for you? What were you doing previously?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I spent the vast majority of my career in the insurance industry. So I tell people I'm a third generation insurance guy. My grandfather was in the insurance business. My dad was in the insurance business, and I shouldn't say I got pulled into it, but it was a great business. I went through college and was a finance and marketing major. Then when I got out of college, I joined my dad and became a partner with him. We built a really successful managing general agency in the health insurance space in the state of Indiana in the U.S. We sold that business back in, I got to think it's like in 1995 to a large insurance carrier. We recognized right off that we weren't big company people. And so after our earnout was finished, we started back out on our own and did some consulting. So I really spent the vast majority of my career in insurance, employee benefits, and most recently then right before I started my coaching business, I was in the wellness and technology space. It's kind of related to the health insurance industry.
Interesting. My first job out of college was selling insurance.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What kind of insurance?
Supplemental health insurance.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
yeah, for those who don't understand what that means, it just means the one insurance pays for your bills in the hospital, and the supplemental pays for your other external bills that aren't covered by that, right? So like the pitch was like, okay, the hospital's taking care of it. Who's going to cover your mortgage? Right. Like that.
Right.
Funny story. That was my first thing, but I did quite well in it. You can respect this, you can respect this sales game on this one. I used to go around, I was doing this in Montana out of college, and I used to drive around in my truck, and I would go to the blue collar businesses, the welders, the guys working down in the industrial yards, basically. And I would walk in, I'd wear steel toe boots, jeans, plaid jacket, no briefcase or clipboard or anything. I would just roll in like this. I'd have a piece of paper and a pen in my pocket, and I would go in looking like I was maybe an inspector or someone who they're like, who's that new guy? But he's clearly in the industry, but like, what's he doing here? And I would just walk up and I would instantly say, where's the foreman? Who's the boss around here? Like, show me to the boss, like very authoritative. And they would just say, oh, Jim's right over there. He's in that trailer. That's his office. He's there. I think he's there. I'm like, can someone go see if he's available? And I wouldn't tell him. I'd be very authoritative. Come in, talk to him. And I'd go in and talk to him, and he wouldn't know who I was either until I was in the door. When I got in the door, I'd be like, so, and then I'd do the old, I was just next door, so on and so forth.
Nice.
Yeah. And then I would basically sell him on it as a benefit to his employees, right? Like, you're going to help them out a lot with this. And he'd be like, oh, that's cool. So I would be like, you're a great boss if you do this for the people. It's also true. It's like, okay,
right.
The service. So cool. And then he would be like, cool. And then I'd say, okay, well, probably your family and stuff want to get on this too, right? Yep. So now that the boss has sold, he's sold. Now I say, okay, tomorrow I'll come back, and you arrange like a lunch put out a memo that there's going to be a guy coming to sign everybody up on this thing that you and your family are a part of, and that you're going to help them with this process.
Great.
I'd show up the next day with pizzas, sit at a
Oh,
table,
nice.
and they would just be in a queue. And they literally would just be like, oh yeah, boom, 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 sign up. So that's what I did
That's
for the
great.
first like year out of college. I did very
I
well.
love it.
Yeah. So
I
that was
love
funny.
it.
It's funny
That's
that you did
awesome.
that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yes, yeah, that was my
Uh,
thing. I actually, they brought me in as like a trainer. They wanted me to train other counties. Like they were like, "How are you doing that?" I told them, they were like, "Wow,
yeah.
that's out there." So that was my thing.
No,
Interesting.
and you're smart to come in, dressed like them because I know early in my career, I went into a blue collar environment with a, suit, tie, briefcase like you're talking about. And man, that was just not the way to go.
Yeah,
uh, you know, it just, yeah, I didn't look the part.
yeah. You're instantly smelling of commission breath, and they don't even know what you're doing. And they're like, "Who's this guy?" And it's like,
Exactly.
"What are you selling?" You're like,
Right.
insurance," and they're like, "Yeah, yeah."
Yeah, we're not
I
into
mean,
it.
I
Yeah.
did try that the first couple of days. I did. That's why I switched. Yeah,
Smart. Yeah.
yeah,
Quick
yeah.
learner.
Quick pivot right there. Quick pivot.
You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting. So, okay, when you were doing this and having this career with your father, that's amazing. By the way, working with your dad and stuff, that's
Yeah.
very cool. Building that up,
Yeah.
selling that off. I'm sure that was quite fulfilling. When you pivoted, or I'd say progressed into your next move, which is coaching and doing everything you're basically doing now, right? What sort of a challenge did you face letting go of that built business that you obviously put a ton of time and effort and energy into, letting it go per se and selling it to somebody else, something that you have ownership over? It's like a passion project with your family. You sell it and then you
Yeah.
move on. How was that transition?
So the selling of the agency was actually quite a long time ago. So I stayed in the industry, but I actually moved from Indiana to Pittsburgh and was still in the industry. But and it's an interesting question because what ended up happening is so helped to begin a company that was in the wellness space in the industry and also technology. It was a wellness technology company. And so I really was in that company for, gosh, I think it was like 6 years. And at the end of my tenure there, is really when I call it my midlife awakening. And it also coincided with when we were bringing in some private equity into the company. And so I was able to exit and start this business. But what occurred really was I was in basically it was a startup company. We were rapidly growing and I was on airplanes and traveling and really away from my family for quite a while. And I just got tired of missing things. I got tired of missing, I never missed birthdays, but, concerts and dance recitals and things like that. And I just got tired of it. And I really wanted to think about like what was it going to be that I was going to make a difference in for the last half of my life. I turned 50 at that point, and I was like, gosh, if I'm given 100 years, I'm at halftime. But if it's less than that, I'm into the third quarter. So I really wanted to kind of think into like what's going to be my significance factor. How would I really impact the world? And so one of the things I did for myself was to join the John Maxwell team, which really I did for myself just to personally grow. But it's a leadership coaching training organization. And I joined it just to grow myself. I love speaking. I've been a part of Toastmasters for a long time. I haven't recently, but back in my earlier career, and so I thought I was going to be a speaker. I thought maybe down the road I'd be a speaker and I'd impact people. But as I got into the curriculum and began to learn how to coach, I found out that that really was my passion, and because it has the most profound effect on people in helping them transform. And so because of that, then I really made the decision about a year later after joining the John Maxwell team to exit my role with that company and start my own company. And what was cool is we had a great relationship with the leadership team. And so I went into the CEO, actually had dinner with him one night and told him what was on my mind. And he said, well, great, you'll be our first, I'll be your first client. And so it worked out really well. As a matter of fact, we're still friends to this day. I just texted him the other day and asked how he was doing. So, but yeah, that transition was really going from a success mindset to a significance mindset. And really, I think that's what was my turning point. I just really wanted to be able to impact the world and also selfishly not be away from my kids so much.
That's awesome. Accomplishing both with one swing. What a feat.
Yeah. Yep.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love, I follow John Maxwell and in his work and everything. Phenomenal leadership. Phenomenal leadership.
For sure.
So you shared a stage with him, right? Where was that?
I did. Yeah, down in South America. In Paraguay, we took some coaches down there, and we were training leaders in the country of Paraguay. And one evening, I came back from being out training leaders, and we were doing roundtables and teaching them how to go through John's roundtable process. And I just had this amazing experience while I was out. And I came back and I was just sharing it with a lady who basically was kind of his communications manager. And she said, hey, would you want to jump on a Facebook Live real quick and just kind of share what you just told me? I said, yeah, sure. And so I did that. We got done. And she goes, would you like to do that same thing tonight on stage with John? I'm like, heck yes. So that's how it happened. And it was really kind of a cool thing just to be able to do that. And it was it's really a highlight of I think it's a highlight of my career to be able to share the stage with such a great speaker. And also it was an extemporaneous talk. So anybody that's been part of Toastmasters, if you aren't really fully engaged in your table topics, you got to get into that, because table topics is really what helped me to be able to deliver a 1-minute talk with John, on stage in front of like 350 people. It was amazing. It was really a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about speaking in general. You've been with Toastmasters a while. For those who don't know, Toastmasters is an organization that focuses on public speaking, right? Toasts, if you will.
That's right.
And obviously, you're very well spoken, and if you can hop on stage with John Maxwell and hold a crowd and to that caliber, it says something about your speaking ability. So to get where you are with your speaking skill, because it is a skill, it's an extreme skill, it's a learned skill over time. What would you tell someone who wants to speak on stage and impact and go down that road? Any words of wisdom there?
Yeah, I think first of all, just practice. John would say too that speakers speak. So just go speak. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner. No matter where you are in the spectrum, just go speak. Speak in front of Rotary Club meetings, or speak in front of your Chamber of Commerce. Wherever you possibly can, speak. And that would be my recommendation. And I too would also say, join either a speaking club, or Toastmasters is a great one, obviously. But learn how to talk, especially talk off the cuff. So one of the things that I do with my emerging leader group is I make them talk off the cuff. I'll give them a topic and say, hey, here's your topic. You've got 1 minute. Tell us about it. And it could be, trash pickup in your county, whatever I make stuff up, but you just never know as a leader what's going to come your way. And so to be able to articulate your thoughts quickly in some kind of a succinct manner is really sometimes difficult. And it's also scary to some people because they're not used to doing that. So the more times you can get out of your comfort zone and do that, the better off you'll be, and the better speaker you'll be. But just get the repetitions in. Keep speaking.
Keep speaking. Yeah, absolutely. Practice makes perfect, as they say.
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely.
It's interesting with technology now, having the ability to stream live from anywhere in the world at any time, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever it may be, Zoom right here, right now. you have an audience just literally at your fingertips, right? So if you're
Yeah.
listening to this and you're wondering, yeah, but nobody's going to listen to me and this, that, I can tell you about the very first webinar I ever hosted. It was just me. Because
That's
I had
great.
no idea how to market it. I had no lead
Yep.
generation. I had no anything. I was like, I'm doing a webinar and it's, Monday. And I got there Monday and I was like, okay, there's going to be 1 million people here and I'm going to talk for an hour and nobody shows up. And I was like, but I did the webinar anyway. I did it.
Good.
And
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
have the recording, which is ridiculous.
Love it.
So yeah, just speak, right? Just get out there and do it. And tell me if this rings true for you as a speaker, because I've personally found it myself. I've had my first couple speaking engagements recently, and they were random. I was just randomly asked to speak in Africa. I was helping launch a company, and they said, "Hey, you want to talk at the launch?" And I was like, "Sure, okay." And they're like, "Well, do you want to be like the wrap up, like the keynote almost?" I was like, "Sure, okay."
Yeah.
So just go for it. But leading up to that, I had been practicing on Facebook Lives and stuff and with my groups and things. And if I look back on myself, is this true for you? You look back on yourself, do you have a different tone in your voice? Is
Mhm.
it deeper now? Have you noticed this in yourself? You slow down your tempo and you speak deeper and calmer and you're in flow, but it feels like your mind is actually ahead of your mouth rather than you're just kind of blurbing out words.
Yeah, for sure. I think definitely I think I speak at a slower pace now because I know that I don't have to fill every moment of the time that I'm up on stage. And as a matter of fact, one of the best things that John does is pause and let a point sink in. But yeah, I don't know that if I've noticed that my voice is like the tonality of my voice is deeper, but I just know that I tend to slow myself down, but yet my mind is still ahead. And it really takes a conscious effort to do that, to be able to slow yourself down, because I know that when I look back at like even some recordings that I've done in, several years ago, I spoke so fast that I kind of tripped over my own words. And so it takes a little bit of practice to do that. But yeah, I don't know that I've noticed the deepening of the voice. I kind of wish I did, but that's okay. I figure I'll work with what I've got.
Yeah. Interesting. Yes, stumbling over your own words. Exactly. That's what I've noticed that as well. It's crazy. So, a lot of this revolves around personal development, right? Here on the Growth
Mhm.
Podcast, we're all about scaling our minds and our businesses simultaneously. You need both to be successful, right? So, as far as personal development journey, you joined John Maxwell. I see a giant bookshelf behind you there. Um,
Yeah.
what type of resources really resonated with you, especially in your transitional moments or maybe the darker periods when you
Mm.
when you really needed that push to sort of click a new light bulb or have a paradigm shift? Does anything ring a
Mhm.
bell that possibly you could share with us here?
Yeah. So I'm going to go clear back to a time I was still in the insurance industry. And this was, this was probably in the early 1990s. And one of so I used to, back in those days, and now I'm really dating myself. We had cassette tapes, and I don't know if the listeners actually know what cassette tapes are. You can go Google it. But
Google
I
it.
would listen. Yeah, there you go. But I would put a cassette tape in my car and listen to, Tony Robbins and Dennis Waitley and, Brian Tracy and all of these guys who are talking about, mindset and personal development and personal growth. And I remember distinctly listening to a Dennis Waitley CD, or I mean, I'm sorry, cassette, got ahead of myself. And, and there was a point where he was telling a story about a senior executive who essentially had control of his own life and his own destiny. And the point of the story was that if someone wanted to see him at noon, they could see him, but they would also have to join him in the pool as he did laps, and they could talk at the, when they were resting and during the rest. And for some reason that like just clicked for me, that this senior executive had control over his destiny and over his calendar. And I think it was at that point that I began. You started out talking about my being a recovering triathlete. I'll talk about that here in a second. But it was at that point when I was just really getting into working out and doing some really own personal development with my health. And I just happened to think to myself, man, if somebody wants to have lunch with me, I'm going to have them come to the pool when I'm working out, because I tend to work out during the day. And so for me, that was a pivotal moment, because I knew, and there was a shift in my mind, that I could be in control of my own destiny, and I could help myself grow through these tapes, cassettes, books. And so I just have been a voracious reader and intaker of these resources, whether it's, cassettes, podcasts. I listen to a ton of podcasts now. And so it's just constantly being able to saturate my mind with things that I'm interested in, and really wanting to become the best version of myself, and whatever that next step looks like for me. So that was a moment, I know, that in my life that really was a switch for me. And I really, I think it changed the course of my life.
Mm, yeah, that's powerful. That's very powerful. I agree with that. Yeah, that's cool. So what you're saying is you're putting your priorities of your health, your well-being, your mental cultivation of creation, let's say, and your business and everything you're doing as your priority, and you're not wavering from it, and you're being very strict with yourself to stay on your own calendar as you will. And if somebody wants to come say hello, they can come join you at the pool because it's pool time right now. And this is my pool time. So you can talk to me when I'm between my laps. I love that. So let's talk shortly before we get into the triathlete, because I want to touch on that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Sure.
I'm a recovering athlete myself, so that's fun.
Nice.
Talk to us a little bit about your routine. I mean, you're a healthy guy.
Yep.
Obviously you do a lot of, you're in the wellness space and all these things. How does your routine look? Do you have a morning routine, an evening routine?
Yeah, so my morning routine is not a physical. It's actually more emotional, spiritual. So my morning routine is I come down. I don't know if you've ever heard of Hal Elrod, The Miracle Morning. If your listeners haven't picked that book up, or don't know that book, it's a great book. It's called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And that book I read, gosh, I want to say maybe 6 years ago. And it really changed my morning routine. And he uses an acronym, and that acronym is SAVERS, S-A-V as in Victor, E-R-S. And so it stands for silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing or journaling. And so I do a variation of that. I don't do the exercise in the morning. I just figured out that my body isn't a great, that's not a great time for my body. So my morning routine really consists of some silence, just kind of welcoming the day, getting into just a space of gratitude. And then my affirmations, I have a set of affirmations. And then I do some visualization and meditation, and really some, my own personal spiritual work at that time. And then I do read. I'm a voracious reader. I mean, I'm always reading something. Right now, my current book on my chair is Indistractable by Nir Eyal. It's a great book. And the one right before that was The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. But so that's pretty much my morning routine, and it starts really early. I mean, I'm up at 5, and I know there's some people who are going to roll their eyes, but because I was one of them, up until about 6 years ago, I would not consider myself a morning person. I'm still not like super jolly in the morning, but I get up and I do the hard things first, because I can do hard things, and that's one of my affirmations, that I can do hard things. And so that's my morning routine. Then, when I get to like early afternoon, so right before we started recording, I just finished my afternoon workout. And so I don't do triathlons anymore. I might again at some point, but I just want to stay healthy. And so the older I've gotten, the more important I feel it's for strength training. So 3 days a week I have a strength training session, and then the other days it's some form of cardio. Usually on the weekends it's hiking with the dogs, and around Western Pennsylvania we've got some hills, so we got some nice trails, and that's my kind of my routine.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. It's very nice. The morning is definitely the time to get in a state of gratitude as early as possible. Like
No doubt about
it's
it.
life changing. If you're listening to this now and you're thinking it's weird and strange, I never thought about it before. I really didn't. I used to jump straight into my emails when I was working in the corporate world, straight into my email.
Yeah.
Like literally the second I opened my eyes, I would have 50 problems in my mind, and it would just completely put you on that path of anger, really, the negative vibe all day, right? So you jump up in bed and you get into a state of gratitude and do a lot of inner work. It puts you on a good
Yeah.
path, which is very nice.
Yeah, no
Very
doubt about
cool.
it. And I use for my gratitude, that's part of my journaling practice. So I usually will find at least 3 things that I'm grateful for that morning, just something new, whether it's, the sunrise, just whatever. And I journal those because it's, for me, there's something that like amplifies the feeling of gratitude by letting it, pass through my brain, out my pen, onto the paper. And that really just helps me to be able to amplify that feeling of gratitude.
Yeah, absolutely. Writing things down. It's I don't understand the science of it as much. I haven't studied it, but there's something to do with externalizing it through your physical body, right?
Definitely. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
read the 5 a.m. Club.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. Robin
and
Sharma.
yeah, Robin Sharma, you know, I was like, well, I guess it's 5 o'clock then, you know? So, so I started doing
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I started that about a year and a half ago when we were living
Awesome.
in Southeast Asia. I started that. And I'll admit it was much easier there. We had a beachfront place with a sunrise,
Oh,
and it
nice.
would just, it literally hit our eyes at 4:45, 5:15, somewhere in there. Perfect. It would
Yeah.
just wake me up. I'd be like, oh yeah, the 5 a.m. club, go for my run with the dog, go for a swim. Um, Now we live in Rome. Our place is not sunrise. It's cold. It's dark, and I'm kind of like, ooh, 5 a.m. It's a different feeling, but of course,
You're rethinking your membership, huh?
yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna think about this. But the second your feet hit the ground, it's game over, right? The hack
Yeah,
that
man.
I've personally done with that is I just refuse to not get up at that moment.
Hmm.
Like I don't
Yeah.
I don't have a snooze button or anything. I just use my phone. It just starts with some very light music or whatever. I just simply just swing my feet over. Maybe you're familiar with the 5 second rule or the 3 second rule. What's her name? The lady that wrote that. Um,
Um, yeah, hang on a second here. Is it Mel Robbins?
yeah, it
No,
is Mel Robbins.
no. Is it? Yeah,
Good question.
that
Someone,
doesn't sound right.
nah, we can Google it. Somebody Google it.
Yeah, there you go.
Somebody out there Google it. So yeah,
Yeah,
the 5 second rule. It just you have 5 seconds to basically overcome your self destruct model of being safe, right, and stopping you from
yeah,
doing
right.
the thing. So when your intuition tells you to do something, just run with it. You have 5 seconds, and in that morning, that's the time. It's like wake up. It's like oh, I don't want to. It's like right then, just swing your feet over and stand up. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and I'll tell you, and I don't know, I don't know that I've read that book. It's one probably that I should read. But one of the things that I started doing, and this was actually a Tony Robbins thing,
Mm,
where he really took command over his body, and basically, and so he has a cold water plunge that he does in the morning. He just jumps out of bed and gets into this water. Well, I don't have that, but I do have cold showers. And so that's one thing that I do to be able to just jump in and get a cold shower that just lights you up. And the reason that I do that is not necessarily, I mean, there's a lot of health benefits to it, but more than anything, and this is what I took away from Tony and his practice of doing this, is to be able to let your body know that the mind, the who I am, is controlling this body. And then if I say that my body's going to get into that cold shower, I'm getting in that cold shower and I can do hard things. So kind of
mhm.
going back to my affirmations, and getting out of bed is the same thing. If you say, hey, I can do this, I can get up, that helps you to be able to tell your body, look, you're not in control of me. I'm control of the body.
Mm, absolutely. Yeah, I love it. Cold showers and cold plunges. I love them as well. And they become easier over time. They actually do.
Absolutely.
You get used to it. By the way, it is Mel Robbins, the 5 second rule. So you guys can go
Oh,
check
right
that out.
on.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Good, good.
I
Okay.
love it.
So, yeah, the personal development journey it's fundamental, for longevity in anything, and business is no different, right? Entrepreneurship and coaching and everything that you're in. Doesn't matter.
Mhm.
You have to be working on yourself, because at the end of the day, especially if you're coaching like yourself, you're giving energy out to your clients, right? You're literally their energy force. You're in the vortex together, and you're the one giving the energy. So if you're not working on yourself daily, you can be depleted, right? And we've seen coaches become very depleted. This happens to celebrities a lot. People that are on stage, singers. People are like, he's on drugs. It's like, well, yeah, but he also has 10,000 people sucking his energy every 4 days. That's a huge problem that people might not know. Um, so yeah, the personal development journey is essential. It's essential. So let's pivot for a sec. Let's talk a bit about your current business and everything you're working on now.
Yeah.
What steps did you take to launch your current business? How does that all look?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's kind of been I tell people it's been a journey of really introspection of myself too. So my growth of the business has been a growth of me. When I first started, like I was saying, I thought that I was going to be a speaker and I was looking for speaking engagements. But what I soon discovered was I really enjoyed coaching, and I really enjoyed holding that space for people, asking them questions that helped really go into their subconscious mind to pull out the answers that really are within them anyway. And so it really has been an evolution in the process. And one of the things that I discovered along the way too is that I really I felt that um, business owners and business leaders needed a way to create cultures within their organizations that would help people to be their best and to become their best. And so to do that, we needed to create a culture. And so creating a healthy culture of people who are becoming the best versions of themselves was something that I really wanted to do. So I put together a framework to help companies to articulate the behaviors that lead to their success. And so those behaviors then get practiced over and over and over again. So there's a process that I take companies through to create a ritual, to create a routine where these behaviors are talked about all the time, every week, every day. And so that evolution then also led to um, working with emerging leaders. And emerging leaders within organizations are really the bench strength, or I call it future proofing an organization. And so if we can help build the emerging leaders within an organization, we can create resiliency and help that business become future proof, because no matter what life throws at them, um, they can respond and not just react. And a good example of that, I've got a great client right now who pivoted at a moment's notice because they were in an industry that was going to get shut down as we're in this COVID-19 situation, pandemic. And what they did was they found some product kind of in their warehouse, and they're now creating shields, like face shields. And so they just got a 3 million part order because they were able to pivot quickly. And it was because of their emerging leaders that were able to support the leadership and come up with ideas that would keep them in business. And so I tell that story just to be able to say how important it is to create a culture and environment that is high performing, meaning that you allow your people to help and help them to emerge from where they are to the best version of themselves, but also what they're capable of. Because so many times people are more capable than they even know. And so to be able to create an environment where they can begin to believe in themselves, man, it's powerful. It is absolutely powerful.
Wow. Yeah, that's extremely powerful. And you touched on something that is super important for everybody to understand. You are capable of more than you believe you are. We all are.
Hmm.
That's the thing. We're
Absolutely.
all blind to our own greatness. Our burning fire inside us is usually more visible to people outside you than yourself, right? We've all experienced this.
Yeah.
I had one mentor who spoke to me one time when I was in a very dark place. We had just lost a bunch of our businesses. I was in debt and just really not in a good position. And I started losing self-worth and self-value. And I started thinking that I was a failure and that I was dumb and I screwed everything up. And how could I do those decisions, business-wise? Which, by the way, a couple of them were terrible, but I mean, it happens, right?
Sure.
But I was chatting with him on the phone, and he basically he said, "Why are you acting as if like you're this giant loser? Like, you keep telling yourself that you're a failure." He's like, "You're a rock star, man. You need to start acting like it." And it was a very like simple statement, but when he said you need to start acting like it, I was like, "Oh, I'm not acting like
Yeah.
myself anymore." And I had a massive
Mm.
light bulb moment that day, and it switched. My attitude went up again. My posture changed. I started interacting with people with confidence again, rather than like turtling up and being embarrassed about a decision I made. I was now being like owning it and learning from it and moving forward, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, you're facilitating that on a grand scale for people. It's very important work. It's very important work.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Very cool. So while you're building this sort of an infrastructure and framework, what kind of roadblocks popped up along the way? Because doing something like that's not easy. Any challenges you faced?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I've faced in the past is really just learning to market myself, and um, and again, it's a journey of, I mean, any entrepreneur that has started businesses, it's an inside game, and so you got to continue to work on yourself, and so being able to learn what the market wants, and how you can serve them, the output, the results that you're going to provide. All of that was a learning process for me. So learning how to market, learning how to, I mean, I've been in business development pretty much my whole career, even through the insurance days, but it was a new thing because I was marketing me. And so it really is about kind of coming back to your comment earlier. It's who am I? And at my identity level, I'm providing something that is really profound for companies, and learning how to then articulate that and market that to more people, so that I can have a greater impact. That was a challenge, and it's been an ongoing process. One of my mentors, and he's been a client actually too. One of the things he's told me is that, David, you become really that trusted advisor with me, and I can tell you things that I can't tell even my senior executive leadership team. So you become that confidant, and not only that, then you can help me connect not only my thoughts to the strategy, and you can help the emerging leaders to connect what they're doing to the strategy so that I can fully execute the strategy. And I think that's really profound, is that having someone to be able to assist and really come alongside and really be a trusted advisor to a CEO, to a president or a business owner, and allow them to be able to think in a safe space, but also connect to their strategy. Anybody that's talked to CEOs, I mean, that's their biggest thing. It's like, hey, my board is giving me this edict. I need to execute this strategy because we're on a mission here, and so executing the strategy is really something that I help business leaders do, while building a culture that really helps people to want to be there and really be their best.
Mm, super powerful. Wow. I think at the end of the day, I, correct me if I'm oversimplifying this. I probably am, but you're coming in as an extremely objective perspective, and you're speaking truth. right? Like if that
Yeah.
CEO comes up with a strategy or he's trying to implement something from the board, and maybe there's something that's not in line with the company ethics, or maybe it's off in left field or something, it's really your job to be completely objective and truthful in that time and help get them back and calibrated where they need to be, right? So
Yeah.
it's like you're the superhero's like sidekick who's actually there to help, and you don't have
Yeah.
vested interest in like the outcome on either side of the aisle, right? Am I right?
Right. Right. Right.
Mm,
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's interesting.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, that's powerful. That's a strong position to hold. That's an intense container.
Yeah, and it's one that I don't take lightly either, because I mean it really is important, and it's really something that I think that a lot of CEOs don't have, and really don't realize that they need. And so my challenge has always been to articulate that, and really help CEOs to understand that this can be really powerful for them.
Hmm. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. I like it. I like it a lot. Um, so during this journey for yourself, and now you're helping transform other people's lives and transforming companies and things, um, through the people and their personal transformation, essentially is what's happening here, right? Um,
Yeah.
what kind of transformation have you found that's happened to you and maybe even your family that's been a sort of a side byproduct of all this that maybe you didn't expect?
Hmm. Well, that's a great question. Hmm. Byproduct that I didn't expect. Um, wow, I'm not exactly sure about that. I'll have to think into that just a minute. But you stumped me, Aaron. um,
Okay.
but no, and honestly, I think that probably one byproduct that maybe I didn't expect was really the opportunity to get in and come alongside business owners in a way that is that confidant, and is that um, person who is their trusted advisor. I don't know that it's starting out in my journey that I really thought that that would happen. I knew I would be a coach. I knew I would be a speaker. But being a confidant and really being able to, like, I know things about companies that I can't share with anyone. And it's really cool to be able to be on that inner circle. So I think if I was surprised about anything, that might be one thing that I'm surprised about. Um, but it's a like I said before, it's something I hold very. I'm honored by it, and I really hold that space, and that trust with high regard, because it is a trusted space. That coach relationship is a very special place.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You have to be a master of questions, right? A
Absolutely,
master
yeah,
of questions. It's kind of like sales at the same time.
yes, exactly, exactly.
I find the more I learn about coaching and the more I'm paying for coaching from various coaches in my reality, when I'm chatting, because I know sales, right? I understand sales psychology very well and I can do sales. When I'm hearing them ask me questions, I'm like, this sounds like a sales call. Like I'm on the other end of a sales call here because they're asking the same questions. How did that make you feel? What are your goals? What's this? What's that? It feels like a similar conversation, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, and it's interesting because I think early in my sales career, I thought I needed to be the one that told everything. I needed to, and I think early in my coaching career, I still thought that way, even though I was learning to ask better questions. But it's really becoming curious, and I think that for as anything, for me has been really heightened. My curiosity, anytime I come into a coaching conversation, I'm extremely curious, and I really want to know different things, about the situation, and I asking myself, well, what led to that, or tell me more. And being able to ask those questions, because from a place of really real curiosity. I mean, I think that is what makes a great coaching situation. And I've had some great coaches to be able to help me think into my own journey as well.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure
the
is.
journey is very interesting.
The,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and on that point, that using that word, I think is a great word, because I think younger David would have said, "Hey, I need to be at this place financially. I need to have this title," and that was the destination. And David of today knows that it's a lifelong journey, and it's one that it's going to just keep. I'm going to keep evolving. I'm going to keep growing, and it's like a plant or a tree. Just because you reach a certain height or a certain age doesn't mean that you stop growing. I mean, you can, but I mean, if you stop growing, you're dead. And I would prefer to just kind of keep growing through life and keep evolving and learning, so that I can be of value to the people that I'm around and the people that I come in contact with. Because when I can do that, I feel like then my life is worthwhile, and I hope to leave an important impact on those people that I come in contact with.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really what it's all about, right? That's really at the end of the day
Yeah,
what it's all about. Impact, helping
absolutely.
people, legacy. It's amazing. So you mentioned that becoming a coach and all of this wasn't your initial intention, right? You weren't trying to create this from the
Yeah.
start. You mentioned you wanted to be a speaker and you had other directions and paths. This is something that's pretty profound, possibly for people who are new to the journey of entrepreneurship, or maybe they're new to the personal development journey, or maybe they're just expanding and growing beyond where they are now. I was a victim of this, and I think a lot of people are trying to think forward and plan the moves like a chess game, for example, as a metaphor. It's
Mm.
kind of like chess. You're doing this move and then this move, and then I'm going to do this move, and then I'm going to do that move. And a lot of people get stuck and paralyzed because they can't think of that third move down the road. How's that going to work? It's not going to work. I can't. And then it stops you from taking action now. Versus
Mm.
someone like David here, who now he has this amazing coaching business, which he did not plan on. But if you look back in the history timeline, you can very clearly see, you connect the dots. You can see it looking backwards. You can see how it was inevitably going to be here and how it was completely
Yeah.
divine and meant to be. This is where you're supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
what would you tell someone who's maybe overthinking their moves and trying to dramatize how they're going to get to
Mm-hmm.
their end result?
Well, I will share a phrase that a mentor of mine has told me, and it's something that I've learned. I don't know if I want to say learned. I think I'm continuing to learn, and that is suspend your need to know how. So hold the image that you have in your mind of what you want, but suspend your need to know how. And and that takes a lot of, I'm going to say, faith to be able to just take action and not know whether you're going in the right direction or not. And so a lot of times, gosh, probably when I was, I don't know, in my mid 30s, early 40s, I did a little bit of sailing on a small lake in the state of Indiana, and I learned how to sail. And one of the things I learned is that if I wanted to get to the other end of the lake, I couldn't just go directly there. I had to do something that they call tacking. And so I had to go, in one direction and then go back opposite, almost like a zigzag. And so going across the lake that way. And so I still made progress, but it wasn't a direct route. And I think that that's what life is about, is taking a step and keep moving in the direction you believe you should go. Because generally we know the right first step. So if we could just take that right first step, the next step, we might find that, to become apparent, just after we've taken that first step.
Mm.
And so I would, a couple of things that come to my mind is just take the first step. And especially for those of us who are planners and we want to be able to strategize. You talk about chess, being able to look through the next moves, 4 or 5 steps down the road. Come out of that and just be able to suspend your need to know those, steps 3, 4, 5, but just take your first step, because so many times people will get paralyzed because of that, and they won't be able to take any step. So just take one step and then the next one will appear, and then the next one will appear. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, that's wonderful advice. Wonderful advice. You're truly only one step away from anything, if you
No
think
doubt
about it,
about it.
right? You're only one
Yeah,
step away. You just got to take this step, and then, well, you're one step, one step, one step. It's always one step.
exactly.
It's interesting. Yeah, something when you mentioned tacking, it's interesting. I understand tacking from. I've done just very little bit of kiteboarding, and
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
the
sure.
same. You tack out, and then you come in, tack out, come in, and there's also a metaphor that's used quite heavily in the personal development space about you can't change the wind, but you can adjust your sails,
Your sales. Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
so that's really what it's all about. Very
Yeah, for
cool.
sure.
Well, David, it's been a absolute pleasure chatting with you. I'm enjoying our
Uh,
conversation here so much. It's nice. Um, for the listeners who want to find out more about you, learn more about your work and your business and everything you're doing these days, where can they find you?
Yeah, best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I think that's actually where you and I met as well, Aaron, and really grateful for that. LinkedIn is the best place to find me, and I am on Instagram. I think my handle is at D McGlennen, and I do some work there, but mostly on LinkedIn is where I do a lot of my sharing. I do some LinkedIn Live work as well there. But I love to connect, and I love to meet new people. So feel free to reach out to me, and if I can help in any way, I'd love to.
All right, wonderful. That's all linked down in the show notes. Thank you so much for stopping by the Growth Podcast, David. It's been an honor.
It's been a pleasure and an honor for me as well, Aaron. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's been great to be here.